Well, as they say, this is going to be a good one. Why don't we get right to it? Dan Gaynor joining us from the Media Research Center, the East Coast Gaynor. He's got some family here, West Coast Gaynors, we like to call them. Dan, good morning.
Good morning to you. Welcome to election 2020, where everything has gone mentally insane.
Indeed, this is one of those days where we just kind of be quiet and hear your takes on things. Have we ever seen anything like this where we have legitimate, credible presidential candidates swearing when they're asked legitimate questions by the media?
Well, I mean, that seems to be almost low grade compared to what we've gotten. We got, Nicole Wallace from MSNBC. Oh, she apologized, but she basically said that Trump was trying to kill off Latinos. Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to say that. That was an accident. You've got the Castro brothers, because Joaquin is the campaign manager for his brother, who's running for president. He's targeting political opponents by posting their campaign finance data and where they work. So basically, Trump supporters posting their campaign finance data on Twitter, being criticized for that, but being much supported by the media. You've got the national or possibly even international freak out over 5 words in the New York Times. 5 words. The New York Times ran a somewhat neutral headline about Trump, and racism the other day, and the American news media, the left, even New York Times staff itself, freaked out. You can't have the New York Times be neutral. Oh my gosh! And so they changed it. Oh, good gosh! and we are roughly at this point 15 months out.
Dan Gaynor joining us.
I've been telling you it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse.
Media Research Center, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Why are we talking about the victims and, just the malpractice going on? You mentioned Nicole Wallace. We've got the usual suspects at CNN trying to be relevant. This isn't reporting. This is condemning, and they're not condemning the killers. They're condemning the president.
Well, they don't want to talk about the victims. The victims destroy the narrative. If you focus on victims, you can't focus on the fact that the El Paso shooter was a white supremacist terrorist. Well, he also was an environmental extremist. His purported manifesto was headlined "The Inconvenient Truth About Me." Now, quick, where do we get the term "inconvenient truth" from? Is it Al Gore? Yes. But somehow nobody wants to talk about that. He has a whole paragraph about environmental extremism to the point Dr. Seuss book, The Lorax, but as sort of like some sort of environmental guide about over-harvesting resources. And he talks how we're destroying the environment for the future generations. And no one in the media want to talk about this. Why? Because to talk about that, again, destroys the narrative. It's like talking about the politics of the Dayton shooter. Turns out he's pro-Antifa and was a dangerous left-winger who everybody knew was dangerous and nobody wanted to say anything. He apparently, on his first date with with a former girlfriend, he showed her a mass shooting video. I mean, so who dates someone who shows you a mass shooting video on a first date? I'm pretty comfortable in saying that maybe there's something wrong with her. She later on said, just the other day in the news was saying, oh, well, that was a yellow flag. I'm willing to say that's a red flag.
Dan Gaynor joining us. Dan, for people that aren't familiar with the New York Times story, could you explain that in a little bit more detail? A lot of folks here aren't familiar with what the New York Times did.
Well, the New York Times, obviously, the nation's most liberal newspaper, except for one, which is the Washington Post, they ran a story about Trump's speech the other day where he was talking about racism, being, standing up against racism. And if you want a second, I'll actually tell you what the words were that they said. So Here, they wrote a headline that said, Trump urges unity versus racism. That's it. That spurred a freak out on a level that you've basically never seen. Joan Walsh, the columnist for The Nation, a big liberal, actually said she was unsubscribing to the Times. Unsubscribing over 5 words. You continue to work your way through where liberal journalists were saying, okay, this shows the problem of the Times. It won't stand up to Trump, won't call him a racist. It's not part of the resistance. Of course, it's the resistance headquarters north. They're the only outlets in this country that are obviously worse than the New York Times are the Washington Post and CNN and maybe MSNBC. That's kind of a toss-up. But what this is, part of this is that people were angry at Dean Baquet, who's the executive editor, because not that long ago he said he wouldn't even let his news reporters go on certain partisan shows like Rachel Maddow. Well, you can't say that. You can't dare say that the Times reporters can't appear on lefty TV, like Don Lemon and Rachel Maddow. So this freak out, he just had to surrender. Within 59 minutes, they had changed the headline from Twitter feedback. Yashar Ali, who's an independent journalist, but even though he's liberal, he tends to do a pretty good job. He said he had received more complaints from Times staffers about the headline than any other thing he's ever encountered. And the whole big thing, the Times, the reporters were complaining that the headline sullied their work. So, of course, for Game of Thrones fans, when you think of journalists, you have to think of the Legion of the Unsullied.
Dan Gaynor joining us, Media Research Center from newsbusters.org. Let me just play a clip for you from Deadline White House. And again, we love newsbusters.org. We share their stuff all the time. And this is recently from MSNBC, Eddie Glaude.
Things. As a country, we're not unique in our evils, to be honest with you. I think where we may be singular is our refusal to acknowledge them. And the legends and myths we tell about our inherent, goodness. See,
you wonder about this. He seems to be the new star of NBC, and I don't know, Princeton professor, a lot of credentials, but doesn't have a lot of nice things to say about America.
Well, remember, the left hates America. See, all the stuff the conservatives have been saying about the left for decades was entirely true. They hate America. They hate the founding of America. They hate everything America has ever done. They are on the side of our enemy. All that stuff, absolutely true. Remember when Charlottesville happened? Around that time, Donald Trump said, where does it end? They're going to end up attacking, Thomas Jefferson or George Washington, attacking the founders. Of course, they're already attacking the founders now. We've seen moves to remove not just the statues of Confederate war, generals and people, but to go after Jefferson, Washington, and everybody else. Obviously they're going after Columbus because they hate the founding of America. So there's a list of statues that they want to target in New York, and those include Phil Sheridan. And for people who are not up in their Civil War history, Phil Sheridan was a major cavalry general for the North. So they want to target him because it's not so much that he helped free slaves and end the Civil War and unite America. Well, okay, well, that's not it. But he dared to fight Native Americans after the war. And so what they are trying to do is purge American history. We are living through exactly what China went through with a cultural revolution. And yes, it was ugly, and they destroyed buildings, they destroyed landmarks, and by the way, millions of people died. So when you look at the context of what happened in El Paso, what happened in Dayton, what's happening online, the open hatred between left and right online, we're playing out a cultural civil war. The left does not like America, never has. And you go back in history, look at World War II. Everybody says, well, we were united in World War II. You know why we were united in World War II? Because the hardcore left in America liked the fact that we were defending the Soviet Union, which was communist. So they were okay with that. Oh, okay, well, we're on the side of the Soviet Union. We can back America. But they didn't. They're running in the Democratic Party a candidate who honeymooned in the old Soviet Union, Bernie Sanders. They are not the friends of America. They think that America is awful. And you notice one of the real interesting things that you see in the news media now is notice how often they target people if they're white and male. And so you'll see. We saw it with Beto O'Rourke when his campaign launched this time. Now, I'm no Beto fan, but they were othering him by targeting him, saying he's a white male. And as if that's reason to criticize. If you flip it around, if you were to say he's a woman of color and you're using it as a criticism, you would be kicked off television.
Dan Gaynor joining us, Media Research Center, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Dan, we always appreciate your work, and any updates on the folks living here in the Mountain West?
Well, it's still a while, but I'll see them in less than a year as far as coming out there, because one of the current Gaynors East is marrying a great guy from Mountain Idaho. They're living here right now, going to school, but they are coming out west for the wedding, so I will also be coming out west for the wedding. Well,
get your cowboy boots ready there, brother.
I don't think it's that kind of wedding.
Dan, you have a great day, sir.
You too. Take care.
Okay, our great friend Dan Gaynor. Phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO. It is crazy. You have the president going to Dayton, Ohio, coming to El Paso, Texas, and everybody is angry and mad. Most notably, Beto O'Rourke, plus the former vice president is in town. A lot to talk about, but here's Beto saying that he hates President Trump.
You say we have to.
Well, maybe not. Let's try it again.
The president should come here. Why?
I was just talking to somebody, listening to a woman who came up and said hello to me, and she said, why is he coming here when he hates us? She's reflecting the fact that he described Mexican immigrants. This is a town of Mexican immigrants as rapists and criminals. Repeatedly has warned of an invasion, trying to make us afraid of those who do not look like the majority of this country. He's described human beings as an infestation, which you or I might describe cockroaches or termites, but not human beings. And you only get kids in cages. You only separate them from their parents. You only lose the lives of 7 children in our custody in this last year when they're at their most desperate and vulnerable. You only have an attack like this when you have a president who gives people permission to act on this hatred and this racism and this intolerance. And so we must connect those dots. And if we fail to do that, we are then complicit in the violence that we will continue to see.
Right. So in other words, if you don't agree with Beto and his denunciations of President Trump, you're complicit in the crazy, wacky, mentally deranged killers that are going after innocent, law-abiding Americans. Troubling news today, but where in the world would you have a place in the world, like even when President Obama came here, we all welcomed President Obama, whether we agreed with him or not. Why can't the left give the president the benefit of the doubt? Plus, thanks to the Idaho Statesman, we'll hear a little from Joe Biden yesterday. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
We've had a rise in hate crimes every single one of the last 3 years during an administration where you have a president who's called Mexicans rapists and criminals. Though Mexican immigrants commit crimes at a far lower rate than those born here in the country, he has tried to make us afraid of them.
Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Your calls on the president going to El Paso, Beto O'Rourke trying to get his moment. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Our time, 6:24. Good morning, Dave.
And we share the same common dreams as human beings. And we cannot allow Trump and his hatred and his divisiveness to divide us up.
To your phone calls, we go to Liberal Steve, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, America, and good morning, Mr. Miller.
Good
Mr.
morning
Miller,
Good morning to you and to those listening on the KIDO Talk Radio app.
Were you alive in 1966, Mr. Miller?
No, I wasn't.
Well, yours truly was alive and in high school when the shooter in the Texas University Tower in Austin, University of Texas, Whitman was his name, young man, Marine Corps sniper, in the tower, killed 14 students. First person he shot was a pregnant woman, killed her and her child, and he injured 31 others. Now, they took the time with him immediately to go through a long process of drugs and everything else that he might have been using. He also stabbed his mother to death and his wife the night before. They did an MRI on his brain, and he had a tumor the size of a baseball in his brain, putting pressure on all parts of his brain. One thing they never do anymore is these type of examinations of the human brain. Now, I was watching a documentary. Now they know so much that they can tell right away if there's something wrong with the brain that could possibly cause an individual to be what do they call them? White supremacist, or that goes crazy.
Do you need a cup of coffee?
No, I don't need a cup of coffee.
You sound a little winded this morning.
Oh, I am a little
incoherent.
I was chasing the ducks around. But they need to follow up on this as far as all these shootings and the Garlic shooting, this last shooting in El Paso, the shooting. They need to let us know what's going on in the human brain, because who's going to go do something like that? I don't think that even hatred of someone could drive you to that. There has to be other things going on in the human brain that would take you to that point, that you would drive 10 hours to massacre people. Something's wrong, but they're not telling us any of that stuff. They got to get on that right away and let us know, because I believe that there's something in the brain that they can spot, and maybe right away they could start doing MRIs of people that are, on the want to buy guns and stuff, that are a little on the, crazy side. They could do it. You got to have an MRI brain scan if it's something like they know for sure.
Well, you have everybody else wanting to take our guns. I mean, Kamala Harris, everyone else. I mean, that's not going to solve the problem.
Well, it's an insane brain that would pull a trigger. But then, I just pray for all of us that, I don't know what's going on in this world, but,
by Senator
it's really almost like this phone call. I don't know what's going on with it.
Well, like Ray was saying, I said, what is that?
Look, you need to go get a cup of coffee and do this all over again. This is a bad call. This is tune out.
Kevin, stop saying bad call. Do I tell you this is a bad show?
Bad call.
Bad show.
Touche. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning, Maggie.
I really didn't. My brother was meeting with the Democratic governor-elect to appoint someone in my place. And it was Frank Church and Beth E. and a guy from South Carolina and his wife, a guy named Fritz Hollings, and Iron Mike Mansfield and his wife, who came to me and said, "You got to stay." And I remember Mansfield saying to me, and Frank, and I didn't call him Frank for the longest time, Senator, Mr. Chairman. The fact was that they saved my sanity. They convinced me.
There we have it. Joe Biden talking about liberal Frank Church, an icon in the Senate, an icon here in Idaho, and Frank crediting the departed Frank Church for helping him get elected to the Senate in 1972. Thank you dearly departed Senator Church. Doug in Mountain Home, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Hello.
Hello, Kevin. Yeah, this place is divided, ain't it? That guy you had on now, the analyst or whoever it was, he had a mouthful to say, didn't he, about the news? What was his name?
Dan Gaynor, yes.
Yeah. And then you just had Steve, Liberal Steve was on, right?
Yep.
I can't believe it. Steve, I'm proud of you. You said the word prayer, that you prayed for this country. It needs lots of prayer, Steve. And that's the problem with the place. They've taken it away. Anyway, Kevin, I don't see how, I mean, poor President Trump can't say nothing without them guys. I guess because they don't have nowhere else to go. They got nothing good to say about anything, period. Am I wrong?
No, I agree with you, brother.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that guy could come up, President Trump could come up with a cure for cancer and they'd blame him for something, period. It's really sad to see the way this country is divided. And I hope I'm wrong, Kevin, but he's going to win a re-election.
Well, what do you mean you hope you're wrong and you want him to win re-election, right?
Yeah, and he's going to win re-election, and what I'm saying is we're going to see, I think, from the left, we're going to see a rioting like we've never seen before, even if he wins.
Well, let's hope not. And Doug, God bless you. Thank you for the call. Appreciate you listening. KIDO Talk Radio is your home for Fox News on the radio. Rachel Sutherland joining us live. That's right, live from Washington, D.C., right on Capitol Hill. Rachel, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin.
Here's something that's a pretty big deal that actually no one seems to be talking about. Jon Huntsman resigning as ambassador to Russia. When Huntsman, a former presidential candidate, beloved out here in the West, particularly in Utah, one of the world's richest men, joined the Trump team, a lot of political insiders and outsiders said, man, that's a really good get. And yet now Ambassador Huntsman resigning.
Yeah, that resignation is effective October 3rd, so some time to find a replacement that has not been announced yet. And so this actually comes at the same time the administration is dealing with the departure of a top official on the National Security Council on Russian Affairs. So they're going to need to fill 2 vacancies. But the Salt Lake Tribune was actually the first to his resignation, saying that he wants to go back to Utah and run for governor next year. So I guess if there's a time for Huntsman to get back into politics, now would be it. We all remember his 2012 presidential bid. He didn't make it, obviously, but he was well-liked and thought to be intelligent. He speaks fluent Mandarin Chinese because he was ambassador to China under the Obama administration, also ambassador to Singapore. But, yeah, I mean, this definitely comes at a time where tensions with Russia are high. You've got the end of the nuclear treaty. You've got the annexation of Crimea. And he served during a difficult time when they were dealing with the Mueller probe. So, but as far as I know, there's not a whole lot of controversy necessarily surrounding his decision if it is indeed to run for governor of Utah. I believe it was CNN that was reporting that President Trump had a conversation with President Putin last week regarding the need for a new ambassador, but we don't have that confirmed.
Well, a lot seems to be going on. It's almost that season when we're looking at the political climate. In fact, once Labor Day kicks off, we'll probably be in presidential mode, right?
Oh, yeah, because next round of debates are coming up in September, and it's going to be tougher to qualify. There are several candidates who have already qualified. I believe they need 2% polling support, and they need a certain amount of individual unique donations. So we know that the debate stage could start shrinking. That'll be a relief to a lot of us who are trying to keep this cast of characters straight. But certainly with the horrible events in El Paso recently, Beto O'Rourke has been there and gotten a lot of face time, but I don't know if that's going to translate into polling for him. I do believe he has qualified for the next round of debates. So, yeah, we're going to be getting back into campaign mode come September. It's usually pretty quiet around here in Washington in August with Congress on recess. And I don't believe, there's been calls for some lawmakers, they want to come back to deal with gun control issues, but I don't know if that's actually going to happen.
Well, you're right. And the president getting a little bit of blowback and the cover of Drudge. Republicans, as you referenced there, coalescing around red flag laws. That should be a contentious issue if and when Congress returns.
That's right. I mean, it's unclear if the president means just a call for more red flag laws across the country individually on the state level. There are already several states that have them. Basically, that means that if you know somebody who seems to be an imminent danger and has firearms, you can call the authorities, and they can at least temporarily take away those firearms until things are sorted out. There are a lot of people who are against that because they feel like it could be somehow abused, that system. But others are saying, well, look, something needs to be done. And the president the other day in his address to the nation over these shootings actually did, call for red flag laws. So it remains to be seen whether that would be on the federal level or if that would just mean more states getting on board with it.
Rachel, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Rachel Sutherland joining us here. Kevin Millen in the morning. Remember, when you hear Fox News on the radio, you're listening to your home for Fox News on the radio, KIDO Talk Radio. Here is Nicole Wallace. Now, eventually she apologized for this. Nicole Wallace used to work for the Bush administration. She was a press person, but she's drank the liberal Kool-Aid. And as we've talked about all week long, the swearing, the charges, the countercharges are not making our great nation a better place.
In words and actions throughout his presidency, he's basically declared open season on Latinos because we are one of his favorite targets. And it's not just the language he used. You know, you mentioned calling Mexicans drug dealers and rapists when he came down the escalator. That was day one. Then it escalated into attacks on Latino journalists. It escalated into attacks on the so-called, as in his words, the Mexican judge. Then he ramped it up again to the invasion, the warning people of the caravan, and words like infestation. What do you do with an infestation? With an infestation, the conclusion is to attempt an extermination.
What do you do when certainly the last Republican president fought for, sought, and it's not ideal, but had 44% of the Latino vote. It was so politically powerful inside the last Republican administration. President Obama used the power of the presidency to try to pass comprehensive immigration reform with the Latino community.
There you have it, Nicole Wallace. Earlier, letting this guy talk about exterminating Hispanic people. Now, the president talked about issues that no other politician has had the courage to talk about. That is the drug dealers, the narco terrorists, the MS-13 coming into this country and killing people. Nicole Wallace saying, I misspoke about Trump calling for an extermination of Latinos. My mistake was unintentional, and I'm sorry. Sure it was. Trump constantly assault on people of color and use of the word invasion to describe the flow of immigrants is intentional and constant. Well, how would anybody else describe it? What they're trying to do, the libs, is limit our conversation, limit our dissent, discredit the president, and call him every name in the book. You know, we talk about secret societies. Ray and I am making a joke about the libs, the Democrats in the Treasure Valley. It's almost like they're the Masons, you know, the secret society. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to marginalize us, the people that made America great, the people that loved America, the people that went to work every day. You know, I have a chance, and maybe this is true for a lot of us, that we get older. The older I get, the less I know. And it is so true. I always used to marvel at people that were so patient and so could control their passion and control their influence. And the older I get, I hope I get that way, because really age does give you wisdom. And as I see young people and older people without critical thinking skills, because they see some talking heads say it, they believe it's true. Trump is bad. Obama is good. Beto is good. Beto is simply pandering to a group. You know, this is an opportunity for him politically. He's going after the president. He's cussing. He's saying all these things. And instead of appearing presidential, he's just pandering. Saying the president shouldn't come there. You know, when the president speaks, and even as a candidate, he resonated with the American people. They're trying to say that people that wear Make America Great hats are that's the same thing as the Klan. You know, Donald Trump is certainly not perfect, but who is? And what the liberal agenda is they see a chance to silence the president, silence us, silence everything. You tell me, has the world gotten better since we've become overly sensitized? Since we've become victims? Since we're all victims? Since we're all judged? Since we put a limit on expression? Since being controversial, outrageous, and provocative has been outlawed? Let's hear what Smoking Joe Biden has to say. By the way, shame on the Democrats and really the Republicans for that matter. If Joe Biden gave a rip about the Treasure Valley, he'd hold a public event. And I said the same thing for Marco Rubio. I said the same thing for any big money Republican that comes into the state. At least Julian, I think it's Julian Castro. He's got a twin brother. When he came in, he spoke at Boise State. You know, why speak at Boise State? Why not go somewhere where the people are and don't charge if you cared about the people of Idaho? Joe Biden doesn't, but he was there for the big money. 100 people showed up, and maybe it was a success. But why not give everybody access? Why have a secret meeting? And we saw this with members of Congress, prominent Republicans, that you had to pay money. I mean, the Democrats are simply following the Republican Party playbook with these secret big money meetings.
And while my children were recovering, I did not want to go to the Senate. And I really didn't. My brother was meeting with the Democratic governor-elect to appoint someone in my place. And it was Frank Church and Beth E. and a guy from South Carolina and his wife, a guy named Fritz Hollins, and Iron Mike Mansfield and his wife, who came to me and said, "You got to stay." And I remember Mansfield saying to me, and Frank, and I didn't call him Frank for the longest time, Senator, Mr. Chairman. The fact was that they saved my sanity. They convinced me to stay. And I owe more to Idaho than you'll know. And I knew your grandpa, I knew C. Sanders. What a fine.
That's courtesy of the Idaho Statesman. And there you have it, the libs taking care of themselves. Glad you knew the departed Cecil Andrus, great governor of Idaho, one of the last true liberal icons in the state with, again, the deceased Frank Church. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Your calls are next. Kevin Miller on your home for Hannity, KIDO Talk Radio.
Some chanted, do something. And they were absolutely right. We must do something. And that is exactly what we are going to do.
Ohio Governor Mike DeWine on the fallout over the Dayton shootings. Kevin Miller in the morning taking your calls about the issues that matter to you on KIDO Talk Radio. Patriot Ray, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. So, you know, whenever they start using profanity to express themselves, I always think of the saying that profanity is the act of a feeble mind trying to express itself forcibly. These individuals, they run out of what truth they don't have, and then they start resorting to profanity. So whenever they do that, I've just tuned out on them. They're useless. They don't know what they're doing. They're not important to me anymore. They're just useful idiots. So we got to keep moving forward. We got to keep voting right. We got to keep looking to the positive. I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican. I have voted for Democrats before. I voted Republican. I voted independent. I don't go with the idea that, oh, that person's a Republican, so you have to vote for him, or that person's a Democrat, and you have to vote for him. No, you vote for the best one that you think will actually do the job, and that's what Trump is doing. And these individuals who are criticizing him all the time, I'm sorry, they're just not very important to me anymore. So we got to keep driving forward. God bless. Have a great day. Thanks for letting me have my couple of minutes here.
We love you, Patriot Ray. Take care.
We love you. God bless.
Hank in Boise with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Hank.
Good morning. You have to take a story like that, Biden telling how close he was to Frank Church and how Frank Church came to campaign for him in Delaware with a grain of salt. It's a typical pandering type of thing that Biden has done. Frank was not particularly close to Biden throughout the 70s. They weren't. In fact, Biden was not considered the top list for Democrats to pick up because nobody at that time expected Biden to win. Senator Boggs, who was the Republican incumbent in Delaware, took his own election by granted, and he didn't particularly campaign hard, and he dismissed, and Biden, to his credit, I'll say this, worked very, very hard in Delaware. He also took positions that are much, you wouldn't recognize him back then. He was, for instance, against busing to create, in the Wilmington School District, to create racial equality. I mean, he came out as an anti-busing candidate against Senator Boggs. And, so you really have to take what he had. I might point out that the same people that organized the thing for Biden were the same people that organized Skip Oppenheimer and his wife and the Jewish community here were the ones that organized the fundraising for Frank Church's last campaign in 1980. And they became particularly important in Democrat fundraising in the state as the labor parties, particularly in the 70s, began their decline in the state of Idaho, which was a factor where Frank Church's earlier campaigns in 56, 62 were largely financed by labor money. The Oppenheimers.
Well, for those people that don't know Frank Church, that are new,
by Senator,
like myself, how big of an impact was Big Frank on the area? I mean, that Joe Biden goes back to them. Most of the people probably weren't alive when Frank Church was at his political power at the old Oppenheimer house.
Well, I remember him well, and I remember Bethine. I even talked to Bethine at one time over at the Oppenheimer house with him in one of their fun. This was after Frank had died, but he had a lot of impact.
Sure.
With downtown Boise, a lot of your people, like for instance Hansberger, Boise Cascade, Joe Albertson. Albertsons were supporters of Frank Church. And
sure. Thanks, Hank. Apologize for that. Running late. We'll get John in a minute. First, traffic. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave. To John in Boise. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Kevin. Thank you for taking my call. I just want to say I unapologetically voted for Donald Trump. I will continue to vote for Trump. The people that he are up against, the ones that are calling him racist and all of these other names that their usual diatribes, are the same people that have put us $22 trillion in debt. They've let us become overrun with illegal aliens. We have been overrun. When you have 20 to 30 million people here that are here illegally, it is an invasion because there are cities in this country that unrecognizable at this point from the way they were just 20 to 30 years ago. It's a tiring argument to hear the race card pulled. The Democrats have turned their back on the people of this country and have taken up an alliance or an allegiance to people that are here illegally. That's what should register in everyone's mind. I apologize to no one. I will continue to support Donald Trump. Everything that this person is up against, no mortal man could take.
Great call. Good morning.